All right, what's up, guys? Let me just make sure this is actually working. Okay, looks like we're good. All right, let's chat some F1. Good morning. Kelly just got the kids out the door on the way to school, so thought it'd be a good time to take a swing at another live stream. This is super fun for me. Like I said in my first live stream, I'm passionate about F1 and I love chatting about F1. And I know this is going to take a while to grow this. This is only my second one. So hopefully we get someone in the chat to ask some questions. And I'd love for this to eventually become a conversation. You know, grab your coffee, grab your tea, and just to have a conversation about F1 and have a topic and chat back and forth, you know, in the chat. I'm excited to connect with the community. And so hopefully we get some people from the Facebook group over here, from Twitter. We'll see. If not, I'm just going to enjoy chatting F1 because I love it. First off, okay, today I got my coffee. Let me tell you a little bit about my coffee. All right, I told you we're going to do a different mug each live stream. So today, this one's a little hard to see. I better not spill this. It's black on black. Such a good mug. Philz Coffee. I don't know if any of you have ever had Philz. I don't think they're overseas, but if you've been to the States, I have. They're in. I've only had Philz in San Francisco. And I think they're in San Diego, LA, probably other cities out there, but phenomenal. I think it's probably my favorite coffee. If you ever go, I highly recommend a Silken Splendor with medium cream and sweetener. That's how you order it there. Silken Splendor, just fantastic. So good. But let me tell you quickly about my coffee consumption, okay? People who know me kind of laugh at me because I can drink black coffee, but it's just not as enjoyable. It isn't. I had a cup of black coffee the other day with a buddy at a coffee shop, and it was fine, especially if it's a good cup of coffee. I get it. I taste, you know, it tastes high quality, it tastes good. But on a daily basis, if I'm at home, I am drinking a coffee that, look at that, resembles a bit more like chai. I'm basically drinking chai. So I'm going maybe a 70-30 split, with 70 being creamer. Exaggerating a little bit there, but you know what I mean. I'm no shame. I really enjoy my creamer in my coffee. So how do you take your coffee? Black, creamer, a splash, a douse of creamer like me? All right, so Philz Coffee. If you're ever in the States on the West Coast, check them out. Fantastic. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and throw out a question of the day, and it's going to be, we're going to chat some Lewis Hamilton today. I'm going to throw out the question as, will Lewis Hamilton ever win an 8th championship? Will he get his 8th title? Obviously, right now we know he's got 7. He's tied for the most all-time with Michael Schumacher. And okay, so we'll think about that. We'll chat more about that. And if you're watching this later on, you know, I'm not expecting a whole lot of people. I'd love to get people in here and watch live, but I'm not expecting a lot right now. I'm just getting my feet wet, kind of using this as practice. So, but if you're watching this after the fact, please go ahead and feel free to post up and in the comments. Let me know in the comments, do you think he'll get his 8th title? While you're at it, if you're watching this video, it would mean so much to me if you would like the video. It helps so much. Please, just quickly, takes 1 second, like the video and subscribe to my channel so you can be notified when I do more of these. I'm just going to keep practicing. Hopefully you get better and better. Hopefully the audio is better. I did some research yesterday do a little deep dive on audio compression, which I am not an audio engineer. So I'm glad that there are others on YouTube who make that easy for us. So hopefully, got something in my eye. Hopefully the audio sounds much better this time. It was peaking a lot in the first one, and in the audio mixer I can see it looks like we're okay. So it should be okay. Hopefully you guys can hear me. And one day I'll get a better camera. But for now, let's do it. Okay. All right. So before we jump into talking about Lewis Hamilton, last night I was thinking about F1 and why I love F1. And it's interesting because, like I said in my first live stream, I grew up heavily exposed to F1 through my dad and his brothers. But it never caught on to me until 2009. And now looking back, it's funny. I wish I had been into it earlier so that I could have witnessed that earlier era and witnessed Senna and Prost and Schumacher and all these greats that I never, the beginning of Alonso's career, these guys that I never really got to watch back in the late 80s and 90s and early 2000s. But so I was thinking last night a bit more about why do I think I love F1? Because honestly, I think I'm in the minority when it comes to F1 fans. I think I get the sense that most diehard F1 fans know a lot about cars, gearheads, they know the ins and outs and the workings of a car and what makes a car work. And I'm not that way. I'm not a gearhead. To be honest with you, I don't know a lot about cars, and I think that's due to my own just there's honestly cars. I love cars and I love F1, but cars they don't do a ton for me. I don't know, which is funny because my dad and his brothers know so much about cars. So anytime I have a question about a car, I know I can go to my dad because he is so knowledgeable and he loves all kinds of racing, all kinds of cars, and loves to learn about them and know why they work and why this engine's better than this engine. And I've just never had a huge interest in that. I'm not a huge technical guy. I'm more of an aesthetic look and feel, hence probably why I'm a graphic web designer. And so, thinking through why I love F1, because it's also interesting because I don't enjoy any other racing. Any other racing leagues, circuits, whatever you want to call it. F1's it. I have no interest in NASCAR. Little to no interest in Indy. I mean, I'm sure if I went to a race, I'd enjoy it, but I don't follow them at all. I gave Formula E, a few days a couple years ago, and the cars kind of look cool. They sound weird, but there's something about F1 that just has captured my heart. And I don't know, I guess it's this, the fact that it is the top of racing. It is the elite. There's nothing better than F1. The speed, the raw speed, even though I'm not a technical guy, knowing that there is so much technical intricacies going on behind the scenes to make these cars come alive the way they do. The teams and the staff who are working on these cars blow my mind. This stuff, I honestly will look at cars, these F1 cars, when, during races and think, I literally cannot wrap my mind around how these things work and how someone can build something called an engine, drop it into this thing, DRS, double diffuser, different tire compounds, um, cooling systems, all these things that I know nothing about. But it's just fascinating to know that there are these genius minds behind the scenes, these Adrian Newey's and other men and women who are just dialed in, love what they do, and they can just make these cars sing. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. So I think it's the elite level, that there's nothing better than them. The speed, just the breathtaking speed. And then I think personally the thing that draws me closest to F1 are the characters, the personalities, the teams, and the overall look and feel, the aesthetic of this sport. Like I said, I'm a designer. I'm a full-time graphic and web designer. And one of my favorite times of the F1 season, or off season, I should say, is when the teams reveal their new liveries, their new livery designs, because I just love the look and feel of these cars. And I don't know. Thankfully, since I'm a Williams fan, thankfully, I've really enjoyed, I think, this season. At first glance, when they first released the new livery, it didn't take my breath away, but man, seeing it on the track and the way that they have made subtle updates to the design over the season, it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's my favorite livery. And so I think those are some of the reasons I love the sport so much. And I just wanted to share, and I'll share more about this when we get closer to the Austin Grand Prix in, I believe, October. But that's good. But I want to tell a quick story about when I went to my first Grand Prix last year, the Austin Grand Prix 2021, with three of my good buddies. And I'll never forget, I will never forget the moment I first saw an F1 car just cranking at full speed around this track. So we were standing at the S's, if you know the S's, at the Austin track. We were standing at the S's in the general admission area. My wife bought us amazing seats at the Turn 1 grandstand where we sat for the race, which was just phenomenal. But I think this was practice 1 on Friday. We're standing there, and we were watching before F1, before they came out. There were maybe I think 2 other circuits. I think the W Series was there. The women were racing. That was super cool. And then I believe it wasn't F3. It was something like F4 or something. I don't know. But whatever it was, the cars were going around the track, and I'm thinking, I know these cars are going quick, but it just doesn't seem like it. Like they were going full throttle, and I was like, I could probably go out there in my Toyota Yaris and hang with these dudes. Like, I know I couldn't, but it looked that way. Like it looked kind of in slow-mo. Like I was like, I was expecting like these cars to seem like they were going faster. So jump ahead. This still blows my mind. Breathtaking. Okay. So the F1, these dudes take the track. They're doing like their installation lap, warming up their tires and so forth, just kind of cruising along, waving to the crowd. And then, so they're going slow. And I was waiting for it. I was waiting to see. And the next time around, I can't remember who the first car was who came through, but I will never forget the breathtaking speed. I'll tell you what, I've watched these cars for what, 13 years now on TV, watching races and qualifying and practices, and I knew they were fast, but until I stood there trackside and watched these suckers fly by, I never understood the breathtaking speed. Truly took my breath away. I'll never forget it. I think it was a Williams that came by first, I think. But this car, I see it coming around the S's. And now I fully understand when they talk about when people in F1 talk about downforce. Now I get it. Not the technical side, but I get what they're saying when they say downforce, because the car that I saw when I saw these cars come around these S turns, they were full blazing, and they should have just flown. They should have taken flight off this track right into the wall. They were going so fast. There's no better way I can say it than they took my breath away. Literally took my breath away. And they were hitting you could just see as their car rounded that turn at the S right in front of us. It just did not make sense to the human mind that physics was keeping these cars on the track. It did not make sense to my mind. But that's what the downforce, what these people do on these teams with these cars is absolutely mind-blowing. So yeah, I'll never forget that. Absolutely brilliant. Just lightning speed coming around these turns. So, okay. I think it's time to shift to a little Lewis Hamilton chat. There's the man himself right there. That big smile. Okay. So, while, Lewis has been, when I started watching F1 in 2009. That was Button season. That was, I believe at that point, Hamilton was racing for McLaren. And he and Button had not joined him at McLaren yet. Button was still at Brawn. And this was Button's season, 2009, when he won. But I knew Hamilton was something special. He was super young at that time when I started watching. I heard a lot about him through my dad, and he would tell me about Hamilton, and I knew that he already had. I think at that point he had already won one title. What was it, in 2008? 2008 he won his first title. Yeah. So, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that's right. So Hamilton, he's been in this sport for my entire F1 career. Ever since I started watching this guy, I've watched him mature and with his racing and just who he is as a person, and I've always had great respect for him. And I think while I don't agree with everything that he puts out there, I must say that I do have great respect for him. I think he's a really good dude. I think, I put out the question of the day earlier as, will he win an 8th title? And I guess at the same time, we could throw out the question of, is Lewis Hamilton the greatest of all time? It's a challenging question because I never got to witness, even though I was alive, and I could have watched these races with Ayrton Senna, I never got to witness Senna. I never got to witness Fangio. I never got to witness, honestly, I never got to witness Michael Schumacher in his prime. When I started watching F1, Schumacher came back to drive for Mercedes, but he wasn't at his peak. So it's hard for me to say, without having seen all those other drivers, if he's the greatest of all time. All I can speak for is what I have witnessed. And I would say, based on stats, he has to be the greatest of all time. He hasn't won his 8th title, although we'll get to that. We'll chat about that because I kind of look at Hamilton as an 8-time world champion. So, very hot take, very controversial, I know. We'll get to that. But I just want to say, I really respect Hamilton's character. I respect his boldness with just being himself. being an individual in this sport. I appreciate his bold style on the grid. Hey, come on. There isn't a whole lot of style when it comes to the F1 grid. I'll be honest, which is fine. But I appreciate Hamilton pushing the boundaries a bit with the jewelry, with just his really interesting, sometimes super unique apparel. But man, I love it. I think we need that. We need someone who just doesn't care, who is themselves and doesn't care what other people think, and is just going to be, they're going to continue being themselves no matter what the voices or forces around them are saying about them. Because a lot of people, it rubs them the wrong way. Me, I love it. I love it. I think it's great to have his creativity, his bold style, his individualism and his character, and I love it. So I embrace it. I think it's great. I love seeing what crazy outfit he wears to each race when he rolls in each day, and so yeah. Let's talk about his records, okay? So I did a little bit of a deep dive on Hamilton last night. I watched some videos on his career. I read a little bit, looked over some of his records, his stats, and then I rewatched like the last 7 or 8 laps of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix from last season. We'll talk about that. But first off, let's chat about some of his records, okay? Now, I know that some of these records and these numbers very well could have been matched or gotten close to by other drivers. Let's say Senna, if his horrible tragedy had not happened, he would have continued racing and his stats and numbers would have continued to rise because he was unbelievable. And there are so many factors. Watching back the highlights of Hamilton's career, and even just watching these past few seasons, it's amazing how delicate an F1 season is when it comes to numbers and stats. Because you think about, look at Ferrari, for instance, right now. All of their, while they potentially have, they're neck and neck with Red Bull with speed. They've shown, especially Leclerc, Sainz too, but especially Leclerc has shown that if his car is reliable, that dude can push and he can win races and he can take those wins away from Max. But reliability, a lot of issues this season. So there's a lot that plays into, Leclerc could easily still be ahead. He had a healthy lead over Max at the beginning of the season before the reliability issues kicked in. So it's really unfortunate. So that just shows how delicate an F1 season is. You have one reliability issue, or you go wide at one turn, even though maybe the rest of your race has been dialed in, spot on, perfect. You go wide at one turn and someone overtakes you, or you have a bad pit stop. A lot of uncontrollable factors play in, and so it's tough. It's tough to. So here, let's chat about some of these records. Lewis Hamilton has the record for, here are just a few: most wins at 103, most pole positions at 103. That's kind of wild that those numbers match. That's pretty wild. Both 103, which is mind blowing. Okay, I think about my favorite driver, Daniel Ricciardo. Dude should have more wins. That's a chat for another day. You should still be with Red Bull. Danny, why'd you leave? But he, for as good as he has 8 wins to his name in F1, which is a lot more than many F1 drivers in their career. Okay, many F1 drivers don't get 1 win. Danny Rick has 8, I believe. Lewis Hamilton has 103 wins in F1, 103 pole positions. That's mind-blowing. Those numbers are bonkers. He also has 188 podium finishes. Come on. I mean, the dude is just setting fire to the record book. So, another crazy thing to think about, okay? Another crazy thing is, I'm looking at my notes here. Okay, so Hamilton has, we know that he now has 7 championships. He's tied for 7 titles with Schumacher. A crazy thing, and this speaks to, like I just said, how delicate these F1 seasons are when it comes to points. Listen how easily, if things had gone slightly different, okay? I mean, just look at 2021, for instance. Think about the Baku race, okay? Remember when Max's tire blew, so Max is out of the race. They do the restart at the end of the race, and Hamilton, pretty sure, what was he, sitting in first for the restart, first or second or something. So Hamilton, at this point, we're all thinking Hamilton's got this win. There's like, what, a couple laps left in the race or something. He's going to get the win. I mean, nobody's going to overtake the dude. And he goes in and locks up and in a turn 1 and goes off the track. Like, what? It was like that weird issue with that magic button or whatever Mercedes had, and he accidentally pressed the button incorrectly. It's like, if he had not made that incredibly bizarre mistake that is so unlike him, he probably would have won the title. Just comes down to such delicate errors and so forth. It's just unbelievable. But so listen to this, okay? So Hamilton has 7 championships. This is how easily he could have 9 or 10, okay? So obviously last season could have easily, we all know how it ended up. If a decision, if a Michael Massey decision had gone differently, or had he not pressed that bizarre magic button on his steering wheel in Baku, many other things that happened last season, had those not happened, he would have won that. So there's 8, okay? This is one of the craziest things. In his rookie season in 2007, the dude missed out on the championship by, well, tying for the championship by 1 point. 1 point. 2 points to have won. In his rookie season, who does that as a rookie? The dude comes in as a rookie and literally misses out by a point. By a point, okay? So let's say he had just somehow collected 1 more point or 2 more points that season, okay? So now he's up to 9. 9 titles. Then in 2000, well, first of all, it's amazing that in his rookie season, he basically missed out by 1 point. And in his second season, the dude won. If that's not the most unbelievable start to a rookie's career in F1, I don't know what is. I don't see many rookies anymore challenging near the top, let alone challenging for a title. That's unbelievable. So then in 2016, when his teammate Nico Rosberg won the title, there was a lot of iffiness. I was watching highlights of that season. There was a lot of shenanigans going on between him and Nico, and honestly, some poor decisions. I like Nico, but some poor decisions by Nico that jeopardized Hamilton's chance at the title. So he could have easily, and he only lost that title by 5 points. He was 5 points behind Nico. So again, had Nico not gone off the track in qualifying at Monaco to kind of solidify his pole position there, or had he not, there were many times where I watching the highlights back, I feel like Nico, there's one, I forget which race it was, but Nico, it looks like pretty, on purpose, nicked with his front wing the back of I think it was the back left of Hamilton's car, back left tire, and he got a puncture and he was done. So had things like that not happened, he probably would have gotten those 5 points, 5+ points, and won that title. So right there, that's 10. He's that close to being a 10-time world champion. And I know he's not. He's not. The numbers don't lie. He's a 7-time world champion by the book. But I'm just pointing out how good he is, how close he is to being a 10-time world champion. That's crazy when you think about how close that is. Between 2007 and the 2007 season and 2016 season, he's basically only 6 or 7 points away from 2 more titles between the two. So Lewis Hamilton, he is magic on the track. I mean, in F1, it has been a true privilege. No matter what you think of this dude, it's been an absolute privilege to watch this dude race. He's that close to 10 championships. When you look at the numbers, that's crazy. One little slip up, one little someone taking him out at a turn or something, or Nico nicking his wheel, or all these things. He could have 10 championships right now. That is bonkers, man. I don't know anyone else who's been that close. So my hat's off to Lewis. He is amazing, to say the least. And I'm just grateful that I'm getting to watch him. And in all honesty, it's as fun as it is to see, it's really enjoyable to watch this new group of young drivers in F1 starting to win. It's a blast to watch Max and Charles fight at the top. It's so much fun to see Gasly and who are some of these other new guys. Who knows what Piastri will be like when he's in the sport. George Russell, that dude is extremely exciting. And Lando Norris, and guys that I'm forgetting right now, but it's so fun to watch this new group of young talent pushing the likes of Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton's not at the top right now fighting. He's working his tail off, and as Mercedes is improving and getting better and better, he's looking better and better. So he's doing really well, and I think Hamilton's going to have a great second half to the season if things continue on as they have over the past handful of races, and I think he'll finish close to the top. I think he's too far away from Max, and probably even Charles at this point, but who knows? Crazier things have happened. So speaking of crazier things, okay, so I rewatched the end. So I have F1 TV, and that's how I watch the races and qualifying and everything. It's fantastic. It's a blast. I was able to just quickly pull up. They have an archive of races that date back many, many years. I was watching, weeks ago, I pulled up the Long Beach race from '81, since that's the year I was born. And man, F1 was a lot different back then, I'll tell you what. But F1 TV is super cool. It's fun. I'm grateful that I was just able to quickly, just like that, pull up the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix from last season and watch the end of it again. Man, that took me through some emotions. That was, I mean, if you've seen the race, you know what I'm talking about. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that in F1. So let's talk through this, okay? I know this is controversial because, okay, even my dad and my best friend, they both are huge Max fans. And I have great respect for Max. He's not my favorite driver. You know, there's, I don't know, sometimes his attitude and isn't my favorite. But speaking of the dude on track, right now there's no one like him. He is the best in the sport. Some could say Charles is, some could say Lewis still is. I think Lando and Russell are knocking at the door, and they're close behind. But I think Max right now, I have a lot of respect for him as a racer, and I think he's probably a good dude. But there's just sometimes things that he does, and I'm like, come on, Max. But he's top of F1 right now, for sure. The guy is different. He's a different sauce, man. That dude, he just, if there are no reliability issues, it's almost a given that Max is probably going to win the race, or he's going to come second. So his consistency is truly amazing. So I have great respect for Max. So this is nothing against Max. This could have been, I would still feel this exact way that I'm about to share if, you know, it was Bottas, or it was Charles Leclerc, or it was Lando Norris who won the title last year instead of Lewis. This is nothing against Max. I have great respect for him. This is just down to what happened with Lewis and the FIA and Michael Massey. So I watched the last like 7 laps. Okay, so last night, and if I remember right, it was right around, I think there were 6 laps left. I think there was a 58 lap race. So on about lap 53 is when Nicholas Latifi in the Williams had his unfortunate crash. And also, man, anyone who gives that dude any you know, any hard feelings for what happened, that's just unacceptable. That dude was doing his job. He was racing at the limit, just like he is supposed to do, and he spun out, and that's a bummer for him, and it's a bummer for what happened, the domino effect it had on the rest of the race. But there's no hard feelings towards Nicholas Latifi. I commend him. He was, if you're in an F1 car, you should be pushing it to the limit and trying to get the absolute best out of it. And that's what he was doing. And he just had an unfortunate spin. So I think it was lap 53 or 58 when that happened. At that point, this is crazy. At that point in the race, okay, so we've got about 6 laps left. Hamilton was 12 seconds ahead of Max in second place. Hamilton was 12 seconds. He had a 12-second gap lead with 6 laps left to his 8th title, okay? He dominated the race. Yeah, he had that weird going wide at, what was it, turn 1 or 2 at the beginning of the race, and some people were like, he should have given, you know, that place back to Max. Call it what it is, okay? But he was 12 seconds in F1. 12 seconds is forever. I mean, it's crazy to think. I forgot he was that far ahead. Okay, so he's got, the crash happens, the safety car comes out. At that point, Hamilton has this title in the bag, unless something crazy happens, which happens. The unexpected happens, I mean, it could not have been more of a Hollywood ending. Okay. So he's got a 12-second lead on Max when the safety car comes out. Okay. And so I'm listening to the commentators, Crofty and Brundle, talk about this, and they're saying there were what, 3, 4, 5 unlapped cars, or lapped cars that were behind Hamilton and in front of Max. Okay, so Lewis and Max had like a, I don't know, I think it was like 4 or 5 car buffer between them. So, and the notice came up on the screen saying that they are going to hold position. And at that point, if I remember correctly, Brundle said, according to the rule book, it's not mandatory for these cars to unlap themselves. So they held firm. And that notice came with like 2 laps left in the race. At this point, they're on like lap 56, okay? So it's looking like they're going to... Oh, and also Max pitted and put soft tires on. Hamilton didn't, because his team didn't want him to lose track position. And so at this point, with like 2 or 3 laps left in the race, Hamilton's sitting there on old hard tires. Max has new soft tires, which, if you know tires, soft are going to they're going to degrade much quicker, but they're going to be way quicker because of the grip. And he only has a few laps to use them, so he's going to be much quicker, most likely, than Hamilton. So Hamilton's sitting there talking to Bono and everyone on the radio, saying, "Wait, Max is behind me now on new soft tires. Like, do I have a hope?" Okay, so he's 12 seconds ahead of Max. Max is on new soft tires, but at this point, he's going to have a challenge on his hands. He's got the quicker tires, the newer tires, but he's going to have to overtake not only Lewis to get the win, but he's going to have to overtake like 3, 4, 5 other cars that are in the way. Then the bonkers decision happens that I still to this day don't understand and don't agree with. Michael Massey gets on and says, or the notification, he makes the decision. All of a sudden, Brundle's like, wait, the cars are unlapping themselves. They're able to unlap themselves. So those cars between Lewis and Max start unlapping themselves. They go around Hamilton and they're just tearing off into the distance to unlap themselves. Meanwhile, Max not only comes up right behind Lewis, but the dude comes alongside him, which is like a new rule that they're not allowing anymore. But he's like wheel to wheel, pushing the limit with Hamilton. And I mean, for your average F1 fan who doesn't really care if Hamilton or Max wins the race, this is box office. I mean, get your popcorn. This is dialed in. You couldn't write a better Hollywood script ending to a movie than what is happening in real life. Remember, Max and Lewis came into this final race tied on points. Another bonkers stat. When does that ever happen? Has it ever happened? I don't know. But the likelihood of that, with all like the delicate intricacies that happen throughout a season, bonkers. The season could not have been more bonkers. And then we get this Hollywood ending, which Netflix loved with Drive to Survive. They loved it. And then we know what happened. Toto Wolff, Christian Horner, they're going nuts on the phone. Who knows what they said to Michael Massey that we never even heard. But we obviously hear, Christian Horner before they let the cars unlap themselves, saying like, "What are we doing? Like we've got to move Max up. Like this isn't right. And then Toto, after they started lapping themselves with like a lap or a lap and a half left or something, going nuts, saying, Michael, this isn't right, you know? And I agree with him. I feel like Michael Massey was pressured into making this just off the cuff decision that he should never have budged on. To let those cars, after they made the statement, the cars are going to hold position, they're not going to unlap themselves, and then all of a sudden on the second to last lap of the race they changed their mind. Off the cuff decision, they just on a whim changed their mind and let them unlap themselves, which then brings Max right up behind. So now that 12-second gap that Hamilton had with 6 laps remaining is now down to what, milliseconds, because Max is right up beside him as they're about to restart with a lap and a half left and Max being on fresh, soft tires. Unbelievable. And we know what happens. Lewis restarted, the safety car pulled off. We're on lap 57 of 58, if I remember right. Lewis hits the gas, tears off, holds form for maybe half a lap, and then Max just blazes on by him. And Lewis had a chance. He looked like you might be able to retake the lead, but then Max just closed the door and tore off and had a pretty good gap by the time he crossed the finish line. And hey, like I said, I am so happy for Max. It's good to see new people winning, new drivers winning. It's good for the sport. I'm excited for him. You know, those touching moments of him and his dad talking after the race. Regardless of what we think about him and his dad, that was a beautiful moment. You got to love a father-son moment like that. And we saw it with Hamilton and his dad too, just embracing each other and their dads being there for them. It was beautiful. I can only imagine what that would have been like for, you know, me and my dad. Just I've got the greatest dad in the world, and it was so special to see them having those special moments where it's like you've got the just the mixing of emotions where Jos Verstappen is kneeling down, just congratulating his son Max in victory, in the emotion of victory. And then you've got that juxtaposed with Hamilton's dad embracing Lewis in defeat, yet he's just loving on him and telling him how proud he is of his son. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Those are the moments I love in F1. But I must say, and this is aside from me just being happy for Max, I'm so happy for Max that he won a title. But I believe that was completely and honestly I don't believe it was right. I believe that title was stolen from Hamilton. And I will say that while Hamilton dominated that final race and deserved that win, and in turn the title, his 8th title, if you look at the whole season, I believe it makes sense that Max ended up being the champion, because I feel like Max absolutely dominated the season. Hamilton did extremely well. Obviously, he had to be tied with Max going into the final race. But when you look at the numbers and you look at how Max dominated the 2021 season, I'm so happy for him. He completely deserved to win that title. But the race, Abu Dhabi, that race, that win was stolen from Lewis. And I don't feel like that was, I feel like that was incredibly unfortunate. He should be an 8-time world champion. I love that Max is a 1-time world champion. He's about to become a second, I believe, this season, unless something crazy happens. But Lewis Hamilton, in my eyes, is an 8-time world champion. I mean, that was unfortunate how it ended. So that's the way I see it. I'm sure many people see it differently, but that's the way I see it. So I think that's it. I'm going to wrap this up. I need to get to work, but it's been fun, and look forward to doing more of these. So I don't think anyone tuned in live. One of these days, I'm going to get someone live. Who's it going to be? Who's going to be the first one? And if you are live, I'm sorry that I missed you. I don't see anyone in the chat. I can't see if anyone's actually watching live. Maybe someone's watching and just hasn't chatted. But if you are watching, say hey. Tell me where you're from, where you're watching from. But if you're watching this back, comment. Let me know how you're liking these live streams. I know I have a lot of improvement, but I'm enjoying myself. I'm going to keep doing this because I love chatting F1, and I'm excited to get to the point where I'm chatting and having a conversation with you in the chat. So subscribe, like the video. It means a lot to me. It will help it kind of get out to more people as well. And I look forward to doing more of these in the future. So we've got Spa coming up this weekend. Cannot wait. That track is pure magic. It is pure magic. I can't say it any other way. It's beautiful. I hope we don't have too much rain, because it rains a lot there, as we saw last season. We didn't get a race last season, so I hope we get one this season. And who knows? Maybe we'll see George Russell move from second place from last season up to first place and get his did he already win a race? I think no, he did. I don't think he did win a race. He got pole position, but so we'll see. Spa this weekend. Looking forward to it, and we'll maybe reconnect maybe next week after the race. We'll see. But thank you for watching. It means a ton. I really appreciate it. And for now, in my coffee, I'm going to say farewell. I appreciate you. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you.